News now from Guyana. Former Attorney General Anil Nalal is taking his successor to task. He's lambasting Attorney General Basil Williams for his claims that the implementation of the death penalty is a strict requirement for the passage of bills being enforced by the Financial Action Task Force. Nalal says the passage of the bills was impeded by the APNU-AFC coalition and not the former People's Progressive Party Civic PPPC administration.
First of all, let me say that the opposition stands ready and firm with the government on its quest to combat money laundering and terrorism. In fact, it's our government that began the fight. And while we were in a minority in the last parliament, it is the government now, which was in the opposition then, that blocked two bills from being passed by our government, and that is what put us in a state of non-compliance, actually. So what they're doing now, they're essentially trying to correct damage that they did when they controlled the parliament as an opposition.
Mr. Nalal says the issue is not whether the death penalty should be allowed to remain in the bill. He says that the government needs to really assess whether enough research was done on the matter.
I would like them to do it consciously and deliberately and not by implication. Because I can't tell a government what position to take. I can, of course, try to persuade them against a particular position.
When pressed, Mr. Nalal could not provide an alternative to the death penalty. However, he says one need only to look at the other countries where the penalty is being applied.
There is no scientific evidence that has ever been produced to establish that death penalty has ever been a deterrent. And the literature and the arguments on that are quite available, and they are indeed very available and voluminous. All right, so deterrent is death penalty has never caused deterrence. That countries that have death penalty as an offense continues to have murders and so on as a crime being committed. So that argument doesn't fly in my respectful view. Secondly, there are other highly punitive, and I didn't want to say draconian, but they will be draconian as well, but highly punitive sanctions that can be imposed in lieu of death penalties, and one only has to look at the countries where death penalty is not available and look at those penalties, and they have found international compliance. So death penalty cannot be the singular manner of dissuading people from committing the type of offense.
Nalal argues that Attorney General Basil Williams told the country that the passage of the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering of the Financing of Terrorism Bill is dependent on the 12 offenses in the bill carrying the death penalty as the sanction for those crimes. He says that is not feasible, as that would go against the United Nations agreements the country has already signed onto. These agreements argue that the death penalty is inhumane. Nalal admits that in the previous bill, the death penalty was included. However, in cases where the death penalty have been brought to the courts over the last decade, the judicial system has ruled in favor of life imprisonment instead. And we do apologize for the poor audio on those clips.